Yeah, hello everyone. Now, this video is not some astrological or numerological prediction or anything like that. I just wanted to share my thoughts about an event in history. And these days there are a couple of movies that are gaining a lot of popularity. One is, of course, the Hollywood movie Oppenheimer, and the other one is the Bollywood movie starring Varun Dhawan and Janvi Kapoor, named as Bawaal. Now, both these movies revolve around the World War II, and both, are showcasing, a few of the anecdotes from this devastating war. And, um, the Hollywood movie explains is actually based on, it's also kind of a biography of Julius Robert Oppenheimer, who's also considered to be the father of the atom bomb. So, I was just, along with that, even this movie named as Bawal, also, it basically, kind of showcases the brutality of primarily the Germans and the Nazis, and the kind of torture that the people had to go through. And it kind of demonizes a character who's already been demonized, whose name is Adolf Hitler. Now, the reason why I wanted to share my thoughts on this, why I wanted to speak on this was, you know nobody even talks about or even considers the attack on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to be, an act of brutality, an act of cruelty, or an act of terrorism. Even in the movie Oppenheimer, like, they are kind of glorifying this, rather, a villain or a demon, if I can call him, whose name was Julius Robert Oppenheimer. I mean, they are just, kind of showcasing that he regretted his deeds, and how great a physicist he was, how great a scientist he was. But I mean, he's the father of atom bomb. He very well knew what the impact could be, and how brutal or dreadful it could be. And in my opinion, if you kind of search for some original videos of his interviews, he was rather proud of what he did. He mentioned that he is extremely inspired by the sacred book of the Hindus, the Bhagavad Gita, and he even quotes a few shlokas from the sacred book. And there was that element of pride and narcissism, in his behavior and his attitude. So, you know, like this attack, which, if we can call it that way, this attack, which happened on the 6th August 1945 on Hiroshima, and on the 9th August 1945, on Nagasaki, this killed more than 200,000 innocent civilians. Now, honestly, if you, kind of ponder upon it, don't you think this was a terrorist attack? Now, please don't get into the technical definition of a terrorist attack. I mean, in any such, attack of destruction wherein innocent civilians are getting killed, you have to consider that to be a terrorist attack. Like, even if you search on Google, which was the greatest terrorist attack in the history of humanity, and the answer comes up as the attacks of 9/11. I mean, honestly, don't you think this also was a terrorist attack? And whatever USA has been doing in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, aren't those acts of terror? Apart from that, whatever, the president of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has been doing with Palestine and Gaza, Aren't those acts of terror? Whatever Vladimir Putin has been doing, isn't that terrorism? So, in my opinion, if you ask me, which was the greatest terrorist attack ever, I would say the attacks of, the World War II, which were led by US on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which killed more than 2 lakh people, more than 2 lakh innocent civilians. And even the movie Bawaal, it kind of it's actually more of a love story, but it revolves around the World War II. It dwells in that realm of the World War II. But they are just showcasing the brutalities led by Hitler and the Nazis. Yes, Adolf Hitler was also a demon, if we can call him that way. And, even he murdered more than a million innocent civilians, maybe much more than that. But, whatever US did by creating and weaponizing this atom bomb and dropping it on two Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which killed more than 200,000 innocent civilians, was also an act of terror. And not just that, like inventing such a terrible weapon, you know, this itself is something which lays the foundation for destruction, because post that there have been 9 countries who have invented these weapons. Russia is having the largest stock, followed by US, and countries like China, India, Pakistan, Israel, North Korea, Germany, UK. And I think this fellow Oppenheimer was, the second greatest terrorist in the history, because the person who tops this list is Harry S. Truman, who was the president of the United States, who sanctioned these attacks, who kind of ordered for these attacks. So he, in my opinion, was the greatest terrorist in the history of humanity. And yes, there are references which prove that Oppenheimer actually regretted it, at least after the second attack, on Nagasaki. Um, and he was just ridiculed and derided by Truman when Oppenheimer said that he's regretting that his hands are like that, that he's having blood on his hands. Truman kind of threw him out of his office and said, "Blood is on my hands. Why do you need to worry?" So this is how pathetic this president was, and probably one of the worst people to have lived. He was no less than Adolf Hitler, I would say. And a very lame excuse is, was given by this guy. He said that he had no other option, because otherwise, he could have lost more than a million US soldiers in order to win the war. So this was a completely baseless excuse. And even if this was true, I mean, who gives Truman the right to decide whether a million US soldiers will be killed, or more than 200,000 innocent civilians of Japan will be killed? I mean, what do these Americans and what does this American government think of itself? The fact is that this weapon of mass destruction was invented just to enhance one's own power. Because once this was invented, there were 8 more countries that, created these weapons in order to become powerful, and then suddenly they started making the laws which prevented the other nations from creating it. And whatever US did in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, or Syria was actually done to prevent these countries from enhancing their power, from becoming a nuclear power. I mean, if you can become a nuclear power and if you can cause such mass destruction, I mean, why can't the other nations also, for their own safety and in order to become powerful, why can't the other nations also create nuclear weapons? So this was one of the reasons, and the other reason was to, plunder these countries and kind of steal the resources, especially the oil that is present in these nations. So that's how terrible and that's how huge a terrorist the United States is. And along with that, I also believe that whatever Benjamin Netanyahu has been doing with Palestine and Gaza, and whatever Vladimir Putin has been doing, are also acts of terror. Even these people should rightly be considered as terrorists. So this terrorism and freedom fighting, I mean, these are very subjective concepts. Like someone who's a terrorist in the opinion of one particular group could be a hero in the opinion of some other group, and someone who's a freedom fighter, for a certain group of people, could be a terrorist for the other group of people. So this is a very subjective concept. And even if you're watching this movie Oppenheimer, you can watch it for the sake of entertainment, but please do not get misled by the narration, because this fellow Oppenheimer was not at all a hero. He created a weapon of mass destruction, and not just created it, he even felt pride in that deliberate and brutal murder of more than 200,000 civilians. I mean, just because they have created these weapons and they are not being able to see those people, when they are dying a painful death, that doesn't make them less of a butcher. So please, don't get misled by the narration of the movie, because this fellow was the second greatest terrorist. And like, if he was the second, I mean, the person who tops the list was Harry S. Truman, who was the president who sanctioned and ordered these attacks. So this was my opinion, and my thoughts that I really wanted to share after watching these two movies. So we will continue with the discussions on some other topics as well, and also the series that of predictions catering to astrology or numerology will also continue. So stay tuned for more. Thanks a lot.